Today is the day you will lose fat. Come see Dr. T at NJ Diet.
Easiest diet I've ever done. It's changed my life. Come see Dr. T.
Using blood work and DNA testing. 1-855-5NJ-DIET and NJDiet.com. Change your life in only 40 days with NJ Diet.
All right, more news out of the NFL. Le'Veon Bell's a new team. He plans to sign with the Jets on Wednesday at 4 o'clock when deals can become official. The terms of the deal, 4 years, $52.5 million. We do not know at this point in time the actual guaranteed money. A lot of times you won't know until after that Wednesday at 4 o'clock. They can say whatever they want, but we'll have to read the contract. But it is 4 years.
Great news for New York Jet fans here. GM Mike Maccagnan has been very, very busy. We talked about it some yesterday. Here today, linebacker C.J. Mosley, the big-time offensive guard from the Oakland Raiders. Semele, he's on his way here. Washington Redskin wide receiver Jamison Crowder. And, of course, the big one is Le'Veon Bell, adding him to Sam Darnold with the Jets. And if you're a Jet fan like Bernard McGurk is, you've got reason to be really, really excited. Again, check out the poll at Sid Rosenberg today. The Jets have solidified second place. They've blown right past the Dolphins and the Bills. Even 9% of the people on the poll think the Jets have caught New England. That may be a bit premature and a bit silly, but the truth is, Bernie, if you're a Jet fan at 4 o'clock today, man, you've got reason to celebrate.
Look out Tom Brady. That's what I'm saying right there. This is a contending team right now. By the way, good choice on the song in the control room there.
Ring my bell?
Ring my bell, baby.
That's an award, baby. A neat award.
Yeah, look, we'll take this guy. But look, just for the casual fan said last season, he sat out the season. He didn't show up. He didn't play at training camp or anything like that.
Right.
And the players weren't happy with that. But they weren't giving him what he wanted, apparently.
Well, he could have gotten more money, believe it or not, to play in Pittsburgh, but he had enough. He wanted to move on. You know, the year before last year, he carried the football a league-leading 321 times. He's got over 5,000 yards in 5 years, but they were beating the living daylights out of him. So it was good for him and his body to take the year off last year. That may pay dividends for the Jets. But let's move back to the Giants. On hold right now is a guy that hosts a very popular morning show on Sirius XM, talking about the National Football League. But more importantly, he's the lead play-by-play voice of the New York Football Giants on WFAN, and a very good pal of you and I, Bernie, the great Bob Papa, joining us early on this Wednesday morning. Good morning, Bob.
Guys, how are you?
We're doing great. How are you?
Excellent. A little workout in the gym and ready to go do my show.
Oh, yeah. Nice and early. I love that.
Yeah, well, that's what Bob does. Bob works all day. Okay, let's get right to it. Gettleman comes out like a week ago and says, I didn't sign Odell Beckham Jr., a 5-year, $90 million extension to trade him. I think we all believed him, including number 13. So you, like everybody else, must have been in shock when that news came across about 8 o'clock last night.
Not really, because there were rumors that they were talking to some teams or some teams that approached them last year. And, look, I think Shermer wanted to give it a full year and see what the player was about. I think he tried to cultivate a relationship with him. And I think at the end of the day, they just felt that from a team standpoint, they wanted to go in a different direction. Obviously, the guy is a super off-the-charts talent. We're not going to kid ourselves here and try to say anything bad about him, what he does on the field on game day. But there were some things probably behind the scenes that the coach said, is this worth the headache? And they decided to move on from him.
And when you say that, Bob Papa, you're talking about his personality. I mean, the fact that after things went bad in last year, after they signed him, he talked trash about the team, and he was maybe a problem in the locker room. Or you remember that time he walked off the field prematurely? Stuff like that is what you're talking about?
Yeah, little things like that, and, attention to detail in your work. Everybody's responsible for knowing all the assignments and all that other stuff. And, the guy's so talented, and he's a difference maker, and he can change games, like with the drop of a hat. But, the coach has a certain expectation level of what he wants out of everybody, and being on completely the same page. How many times last year did it look like he and Eli were not on the same page? There's a lot of detail to that, and it's easy to just say, oh, that was a bad throw by Eli. Eli stinks, this and that and the other thing. But, there's two sides to every play, and there's a lot of things that have to happen. And, I think I think obviously from the information that they have, they felt that it was best to move on from the player.
Voice of the Football Giants, WFAN's Bob Papa, getting ready for his morning show on Sirius XM. Even last year, when they were not on the same page all the time, like you just correctly stated, Bob, 77 catches, another 1,000-yard season, and 6 touchdowns. He is a magnificent talent. But the bigger question now today is, forgetting about the trade, did Giant GM Dave Gettleman get enough? First rounder, number 17 overall, Peppers, to replace Landon Collins. You got to like that. But a lot of people upset that the Giants got the late third-round pick, number 95 overall from Cleveland, instead of their earlier third-round pick. So do you think the Giants, Dave Gettleman, got enough?
Well, that was the best offer that they had, right? I mean, because we know that there are other teams that have inquired about him. These rumors and these reports that have been out there over the last year of several teams inquiring about Odell Beckham Jr.
Well, hold on. When you say that was the best offer they got, you're making it sound like they were going to trade him no matter what. Their contention was, we're going to listen. We don't have to trade him. When you couch it like that, what you're saying is they were going to trade him, and they just got the best offer.
Well, I mean, just think about it, right? I mean, he said if we got blown over. Well, obviously this isn't the first team that has called them and inquired about the player, right? So maybe some of the other teams that have been called inquired about the player, the deal was not even remotely close to what they wanted in a deal. This one obviously piqued their interest enough to trade him. Listen, if this guy is so good and is so talented and has done some things that no other receiver has ever done, through the first 3 years of his career, why would you even trade him at all? Why wouldn't you just hang up the phone? If someone calls the Patriots and asks to trade for Tom Brady, they laugh and they hang up the phone. Or if someone called the Giants and asked for Saquon, they would laugh and hang up the phone. Obviously, there was some motivation on their part to trade him because they didn't hang up the phone when people came calling.
Bob Papa, I think I'll say it. You're being very diplomatic. I believe it sounds like he was a perpetual malcontent, a drama queen, maybe trouble in the locker room, and that's why they were hell-bent on getting rid of him. They didn't say it, but they did. My question to you now, Bob. Go ahead.
I will say one thing. He was a good teammate. The guys liked him, and this thing about him and Eli not getting along, I can tell you, I can't tell you how many times I'd walk through the cafeteria right, the early part of lunch, and he and Odell are sitting there at the table laughing. I know Eli has had Odell at his house for dinner, so some of this stuff about him and Eli not getting along was really overblown.
Yeah.
The things that I saw firsthand were a lot different.
No, you're right. Everybody says that the players loved him. Maybe the media didn't love him and all that type of stuff, but his teammates loved him. One more, bringing up Eli Manning. Now Giant fans are like, well, you got to get rid of Eli. Look, Jacksonville just gave Nick Foles about $90 million. That would have made sense. Tom Coughlin, blah, blah, blah. There's not a lot of market out there for a 38-year-old quarterback coming off on one of his worst seasons, although statistically it looked okay on paper. So the idea that the Giants have to rid themselves of Eli Manning, it sounds easier than it really is, no?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they got to have somebody to play quarterback, and who knows what was said in that man-to-man, heart-to-heart talk that Gettleman talked about at the end of the season with Eli. Maybe they talked about the fact that, hey, we're going to probably take a quarterback, and guess what? We'd like you to mentor him. And maybe Eli said yes. I'm just guessing. I wasn't in that room. But listen, he's not Nate Peterman either. He's coming off a season which he had his highest completion percentage and his highest quarterback rating, and his touchdown to interception ratio wasn't brutal. So it's not like, he played like Mark Sanchez.
Right. So are you ready, Bob Papa? I mean, you talked about it. Barkley is still here. They're killing the Giant wide receiver core. Let me remind folks that the tight end Ingram is a first-round choice. Shepard, who played collegiate football with Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma, he's a pretty good player. The idea that the Giants are now a terrible team, one of the worst in football, after all the moves the last week or so, is that closer to accurate or fiction?
Well, listen, the defensive side of the ball is a mess, right? I mean, they got to get playmakers in there. Offensively, look, there's a thing called free agency, and you can sign a mid-range free agent to bolster your receiving core, and there's this thing called the draft where you can actually draft players that are successful. And so far, Gettleman's track record in his drafts have been pretty good, so whether it's with Carolina or, last year with the Giants. So you got to trust in this process of rebuilding this team through the draft, because the free agency big signings of the previous regime clearly didn't work.
Well, Bob Papa, the voice of the New York Giants, I'm still not 100% sure if you think this is a good trade or a bet. But listen, you're excellent. We love you. Thanks for coming on the Bernie and Sitch.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure. Okay.
I'm not sure.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
That's fair. I think most Giant fans feel the same way. Bob, you're great as always. Enjoy your show this morning. We love you. Thanks, pal.
All right, you got it, guys.
Take care. The great Bob Papa. Check him out in about 23 minutes. Sirius XM. 1-800-848-WABC. 1-800-848-9222.